The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamite, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
Goes on behind the scenes in college.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, November 2nd, and today is International Doge Day. For all you people that lost big time on that. It's also All Souls Day, National Cashback Day, probably because it's Doge Day. It's also National Ohio Day, National, oh, Rochelle, I think you're going to love this. It's National Make Men Make Dinner Day, and National Broadcast Traffic Professionals Day. Well, thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. Use that fancy little QR code somewhere on the screen to find where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube. And we are also broadcasting now on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and Rumble. So welcome to anyone joining us from any of those audiences. But I'm sorry for our starting late. We had a couple technical difficulties this morning. We are going to kick it off with the Florida man of Sonoma. That's right, Mr. Yarrow Kubrin, who does cannabis, real estate, and cannabis real estate, of course. That's right. It is none other than the Yarrow Kubrin. Yarrow, you're frozen. Yarrow's frozen. Oh, all right. I guess we're not going to Yarrow first. I guess we're going to the dope dad himself.
We got winner up.
Yeah, we're going to the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamite, who is styling and profiling with his gray beanie today, getting ready for his big depot. Oh, yeah, that's right. It is the dope dad himself. It is Rico Lamite.
I'm getting a golf clap. There you go. All right, man. I got a Green Market report came out with some pretty interesting data on social equity. And John Schroyer, he's currently doing a multi-segment deep dive into social equity in the U.S. cannabis industry. He dropped the first installment yesterday, looking at the current state of affairs from a data-backed viewpoint. The movement's definitely evolved since we were first marching in favor of equity back in over equality back in 2017. And it's interesting to see how what used to be a bottom-up initiative to counter the harms done to communities of color by the war on drugs, it's morphed into more of a top-down box to check, if nothing else than that. As Schroyer put it in the article, social equity has been woven into licensing structures by lawmakers or regulators as they craft new state-level industries, and certain criteria is often established in order to prioritize licensure for entrepreneurs who can demonstrate a legitimate harm from cannabis prohibition. There's no definitive database yet tracking social equity businesses or licenses nationwide, or how many social equity businesses are operational or profitable. So it's hard to really gauge how much progress has been made by social equity programs. But GMR compiled intelligence from Cannabis Media, 2022 report by the Minority Cannabis Business Association, and another 2022 report from the state of California to flesh out around 2,300 social equity businesses and permits that have been issued in at least 15 states with equity programs. That's about 5% of the total 42,319 cannabis business permits issued nationwide, as reported by Cannabis Media through the end of October. The state to state breakdown includes 26 in Arizona, 619 in California, 59 in Connecticut, 2 in Florida, 144 in Illinois, 392 in Massachusetts, 2 in Michigan, 42 in New Jersey, 10 in Nevada, 781 in New York, 226 in Vermont. MCBA added that there are also state-run social equity programs in Colorado, Maryland, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Washington State, and Virginia, but specific data about the licensing under those programs is still hard to come by. So that 2,300 to 2,303, to be exact, tally is not accurate as you'd think. But the best our industry can muster up at the moment with the tools given. Schroyer went on to say that the figure also doesn't include up-to-date statistics from California and Michigan and some other states, in part because of a legislative report in California that was due in July has not been published, and Michigan regulators are hesitant to share specific social equity license data. There's also new social equity programs being created nearly every year, with more such programs becoming available in states like Missouri and Maryland, and more upcoming in New York, while social equity programs are being considered by lawmakers in Hawaii, Minnesota, and other states that are poised to legalize pretty soon. Some of y'all may have caught that Florida was on that list of states that I gave a second ago. Those licenses are actually a result of litigation, not direct policy written by lawmakers, so the MCBA doesn't count Florida as a social equity state. Interestingly, Cannabis Media counts Florida as a social equity state because they're reserved for quote unquote black farmers. Also not included on the list, equity license holders that may have already sold their permits or exited the industry, which Schroyer says means that the size, scope, and success of social equity programs is inherently tough to judge. Interesting data, indeed. Even though it's very incomplete and fragmented, I think what is and isn't being reported by different agencies on social equity speaks a lot to how equity programs have not been and continue to not be taken seriously. It's an afterthought, nothing more than a box to check when spinning up new industry regulations. Performative appeasement by legislators and corporations pandering to communities still reeling from the Anslinger, Nixon, Reagan, Clinton, and yes, Biden administration policies. I've been a vocal advocate for original philosophies behind social equity and cannabis from the jump. I've also been an outspoken critic toward what has evolved, or what the social equity movement has evolved into over the past 7 years. I'm not optimistic about the trends that I've seen and don't really have faith in our leaders putting together stuff that'll universally work for communities on a federal level without policies easily being challenged as unconstitutional. But I am thankful for the work that Schroyer and GMR did here, as it gives us a more detailed view into what's going on from different perspectives. Um, Very much looking forward to see what part two reveals. I'm Rico Lamite, the dopest dad on the street. Interested in hearing what you guys have to say about this. What do you think about these numbers on social equity?
Part two is just going to bring more sadness and tears and desperation.
It's it was like it's planned obsolescence, man.
Yeah. This is why I call it
I
socialist equity.
Yeah, that's why we call it
Hmm.
socialist equity, man. It's a pipe dream. I think like the more that these states pile on to it, like the less of the original messaging is going to be found in any of these policies.
Hmm.
It's just going to, like I said, it's a box to be checked. Um, the people who have suffered most, the communities that have suffered most from prohibition and the war on drugs, um, less than 5% of the entire industry, and the majority of those social equity licenses aren't even black.
Oh boy.
I think I think it's interesting. I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago at MJ Unpacked, and in one of the pre-calls, it was about retail merchandising, and I was asking, what can these smaller brands, social equity brands, do once they've gotten their license, once they're in the market? What can they actually do to ensure they're getting prime shelf space to get, promotion within dispensaries? And the answer was pretty bleak. Like one of the people on the panel was basically like, it's not possible. Like money talks and that's it. And so it's like Not only are you facing unbelievable odds in this industry in general, you have lack of access to capital, but then once you're there, who's actually ensuring that your product is getting in front of consumers, and what's the incentive for consumers if they don't even know you exist? It seems like there's just barriers at every single turn for social equity brands in general.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'll tell you what, if social equity was a high-speed chase, they'd be stopped in their tracks. All these barriers.
Are you sure you're not a dad, Jason? That was one of the worst dad jokes I've
I,
heard.
that's,
You
I
know?
couldn't
was
help
it was terrible. It's like I feel extra pressure to be extra funny because that one was a car crash, not a car chase. So look, I'm verified social equity. I went to the wrong schools. I grew up in the wrong neighborhoods. I got in the right trouble. And the moment I learned about social equity in Oakland, I was helping some people to get cultivation licenses. And when San Francisco came out with their program, I laughed and cried at the same time. I laughed because I was excited about being a participant. I cried because it reminded me of all the things that got me there, and none of those were incredibly enjoyable experiences. I think we need to, it's hard to separate the challenges of social equity in cannabis with the challenges of regulated cannabis. And a lot of the pain points of regulated cannabis equally or even more so apply to social equity operators and applicants. And so there is some challenges in regulated cannabis, and that's the world's biggest understatement this morning. But I think that we have to really sort of delineate which of those challenges are social equity and which of those are just the way in which regulated cannabis has been rolled out, not always so efficiently and not necessarily with cohesive policy. The thing I think that's most important is that the challenges of social equity are better than the challenges of not having social equity. And when we look at social equity programs and the amount of funding that those programs receive relative to the amount of sales or taxes that are brought in from regulated cannabis, there's a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot of room on that pie chart to support social equity applicants, social equity programs, and to give them some attempt at a level playing field. And so I just think that it's important to understand that this is not a handout. This is not an unfair advantage. If you look at many industries, they benefit from government involvement, reduced taxes, and incentives, and we don't have that on a federal level. And so I still think it's important for states to have social equity programs, ideally at the beginning and not as a bolt-on later on, and to understand that the challenges within these programs are still better than not having these programs. The challenges, we could have an entire week of a podcast of this High at Nine News podcast on what those challenges are. But I think that getting on shelf space is not easy for any brand. And maybe I'm insulated. Maybe I'm in a bubble. Maybe it's because I've been doing social equity policy work for 7 years. But I look at retailers in LA, social equity retailers in LA, and they are prioritizing social equity brands. And so there is an opportunity to have supply chain alliances and to support like-minded businesses and to support social equity brands. And maybe that's not enough to turn the tide or to overcome some of the macroeconomic challenges of regulated cannabis. But I'm still optimistic that social equity is an important part of regulated cannabis, and that we need to continue to fail forward and continue to fund these programs and to do a better job at it. I received $250,000 in social equity funds to run a business that still isn't stood up yet and still doesn't have a certificate of occupancy. And in that, I can tell you that this last round of grant funding was incredibly inefficient, and it looked like the Office of Cannabis hadn't figured out how to do it better in round 4 than they did in round 1. But that doesn't mean that I don't want those opportunities, and it doesn't mean that those resources aren't going to be beneficial to the business once it's open.
Facts. I think hindsight's always 2020. I do wish that California, the first to roll out social equity programming, would have done things like New York did and actually had social equity licensing first.
You mean like open up no stores?
But we know
and say you're gonna have so many stores open?
actually give clearance for the Black and brown operators first to get up and running. And because you knew that these multi-hundred million dollar entities, they were coming. The MSOs were not far behind, and there's plenty of businesses that did not suffer, the communities that did not suffer. But instead of making a carve out, and giving equity licenses and making people pay exorbitant fees for 3 years before you even have provisional licenses issued. They didn't do it that way. So you had a bunch of people with deep pockets. They had a head start. And we are where we are here in California. I don't get into the nuances. Like Yaro said, we can speak for hours and days on this shit. But, to see these other states say, oh, yeah, they didn't do it right. And they're trying it their own way. Like, nobody can agree to what social equity even means. I will say this every time we bring up social equity. Look up the etymology of the word. Yep. It was created by a white man, H.G. Fredrickson, in Idaho, 1968. It's a marketing buzzword. Mm-hmm. So if you even put this thing into law anywhere, what is social equity? There's no dictionary definition for social equity. People can't agree to what it is, municipality to municipality, state to state. And if you try to put this on a federal level, guarantee there's going to be constitutional challenges immediately, right? Mm-hmm. Good luck when interstate commerce opens up. All of these programs are going to be null and void. So it's a big mess. It was a mess from the beginning, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon. I'm just like super pissed off that these government bodies just lied to people, and you just wasted people's time, their money, and telling them, oh, it's a chance to build generational wealth. Like, and shout out to the people in social equity that have been successful, but we need to realize they are an exception to the rule. Period. Just like your favorite rapper coming out the hood, like, oh yeah, if I can do it, you can do it too. No, you can't do it like that. They are exceptions to the rule to get you out of the shit that you are in. And social equity is it's not the answer. Reparations is.
And yes, Jason, I don't know if I'm buying all that, but nonetheless, on that, we're going to roll a commercial and we're going to be right back. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
To do. They're like, oh, I feel your pain. I'm like, I had to go hustle up $72K on a pre-revenue entity to get reimbursed. And on the 4th round, you guys are telling me that everything I did to get reimbursed on the other 3 rounds won't apply to this round, and there's no appeal process for me.
Yarrow, if we want to get to your story on time, bro, we got to keep it moving.
My bad. Yeah, I didn't hear the commercial, so I thought we could just riff from ramble.
All right.
Up next, he's a second-generation cultivator and the founder of Special Teams Consulting, the Sebastopol sage himself, Yarrow Kubrin.
Hey, good morning, High at 9 News viewers. My article today, San Francisco Gate. Thank you, Lester Black, Senor Byline. My article today, some California cannabis farms are selling out as optimism returns. As in selling out a product, not selling out their values. There's something unusual in the air at Northern California's cannabis farms. Optimism. For years, California's legal pot farms have been devastated by the 1-2 punch of crashing wholesale prices and extremely expensive regulatory requirements. That's caused hundreds of farms to go out of business, but this year's fall harvest has brought a new sense of hopefulness. Farms in Northern California's Emerald Triangle, which was once home to a thriving cannabis farming economy, have sold out a pot this fall after years of struggling to sell their weed. The wholesale price of cannabis, which largely determines if farms can live or die, appears to have stabilized in California, and small farms are finding new creative ways to stay in business. I feel the tide is turning in our favor at long last, says Judy Nelson, the owner of Soul Spirit Farm in Trinity County. Nelson told SF Gate that for the first time since 2019, she recently completely sold out of her inventory. To be clear, pot farmers aren't expecting to go back to the booming days of a decade ago when California's medical marijuana market allowed farmers to easily turn a profit growing pot on even the smallest homesteads. The Emerald Triangle, a 3-county region that includes Humboldt, Mendocino, and Trinity counties, is still a shadow of its former self. But the pot farmers who remain say there are real signs of the cannabis growing economy rebounding for the first time in years. Johnny Casali, the owner of Huckleberry Hill Farms in Humboldt County, says he's already sold 90% of the crop he harvested last month. He grows what are known as regenerative cannabis crops, a signature of Northern California that involves the plants being grown outdoors as opposed to inside under artificial light. He thinks that retailers and shoppers are finally seeking out this kind of cannabis after years of it being rejected by legal weed stores, giving him hope that his farm can survive. People are starting to resonate with regenerative farming, growing cannabis organically, and resonating with small farmers in our story, Casali told SF Gate. Locals are also seeing a slow return of farm workers to the region, according to Kristen, I can't pronounce her last name, the director of operations for Humboldt Canna Company in Willow Creek. After legalization in 2017, many folks cleared out of the region as the cannabis businesses declined, she said. It's crazy how much quieter our mountain roads have gotten over the years, but this year we've seen more traffic, which means more workers on farms on the hill than we have seen since 2017, which I'm taking as a good sign, she said. There are still fewer pot farms across the Emerald Triangle than there were 5 years ago, but the farmers who have stuck around are increasingly finding creative ways to keep their businesses open, according to Daniel Stein, who owns Bryceland Forest Farm with his wife in the small community of Bryceland. To sustain their pot farm, Stein and his family formed a cooperative company called Farm Cut with 5 other Northern California farms to share the cost of packaging and distribution. His farm also grows and sells produce and runs a weekly farmers market. It's muted conditions from where it once was, but for sure the economy is settling out, hopefully. Stein told SF Gate. It has narrowed the community, but the people who are here want to be here, and there's a real beauty in that. Growing a diverse set of crops has long been a foundational principle of Northern California's cannabis farms, which have their roots in hippie homesteads that grow all of their own food. Pot farms are increasingly finding that this plant diversification can be one way to survive the cutthroat legal cannabis industry. Ruby Rose, who owns the Whitethorn Valley Farm in Humboldt County with her husband, said she started a commercial flower business to help keep the family's farm afloat after cannabis prices dropped. She said the flower business is doing well, making her hopeful that they can continue to raise their 2 kids on their homestead. We're optimistic. We're all in. This is not a business for us. This is a lifestyle, she told SF Gate. It's really important we make it work because this is where we want to live the rest of our lives. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News.
Man, these I feel like there's a trend going on with these stories so far today.
I don't know. With this one, I feel like you love to see it. I mean, the Emerald Triangle needs to bounce back.
Yeah.
And to know that farmers are feeling hopeful for once in a really long time, I'm really glad to hear it. And also the whole perception that outdoor sun grown is less than, needs to be challenged, and it sounds like it finally is. I would have assumed that consumers, especially younger consumers who are so concerned about climate change, would be all in on sun grown. So I don't know if that's what's making the change or what. I'd be interested in hearing why the market is shifting.
I mean, maybe
with the decimation of all of these other cannabis cultivation licenses, there's been a big difference in terms of supply and demand in the regulated supply chain. So in one way, this is kind of sad because we're interviewing the polar bears that managed to stay on those ice caps while the other ones drowned because those ice caps were melting. On the other, and also the other thing is the people who are being interviewed are farmers who branded their farms. When we're talking about Soul Spirit or Huckleberry, we're talking about farmers that understood the value of a brand early on and didn't just B2B wholesale their flour in bags, which was more of a legacy way of thinking. And they're reaping the rewards of that because consumers can choose what farm they're purchasing from instead of just getting weed in a jar.
Good point.
I mean, I'm glad that they're feeling hopeful up there in the north. I am truly glad for that, and I do want them all to succeed and whatnot. But Rochelle, do you really think that people's view on climate change is going to dictate the type of products that they purchase?
I don't know. I don't understand Gen Z, but I know that they're concerned about it.
My thought is this: I wonder what happens when all the Gen Zers in like 20 or 30 years from now realize that everything they were told about this is a big lie, and the world's still here, and we're still moving, and everything else like that, and still have tidal waves, and still have sunny days and cold nights and whatnot, and then all of a sudden, what's going to happen with them?
Well, I think there's another reason separate from your climate change denier mindset. I think there's another reason why consumers would strongly consider acquiring cannabis from the Emerald Triangle or Sonoma County, and that is that these a lot of these genetics, the highest and best expression of these genetics has been coaxed out of these climates, these regions, these hills, these farms for decades. And so there is an argument to be made separate from the ecological benefits or the environmental benefits of sun-grown versus indoor, that you're going to get the best expression of those flowers from regions where those flowers were created, and from operators who have generational knowledge about how to get the best out of those plants.
Fair enough. We will see, and time will tell on all of this. But Yarrow, if you have a quick second, I'm going to go into my story. I definitely want to hear what you have to say, because this has to do with socialist equity as well. Rico, are you ready for this? Adam, why isn't this blowing up? What is going on? Oh, there we go. Oh, man, I can't even barely read this. What'd you do to my computer, Adam? Nonetheless, Illinois' suit aims to block the opening of Socialist Equity marijuana licenses store. That's right. The parent company of a marijuana retailer in Illinois filed a lawsuit alleging that another store is opening too close to one of its existing outlets in Chicago. The parent company of a marijuana retailer under state law, marijuana retailers are not allowed to be located within 1,500 feet of each other unless the two entities were licensed under Illinois' social equity program. The lawsuit filed this week in Cook County by GRI Holdings argues that while social equity licenses should be permitted to open stores close to locations owned by large multi-state operators, regulations should not permit social equity businesses to locate so close to each other, the Chicago Sun-Times-Herald reported. The lawsuit claims that the social equity exemption is a misinterpretation of the state law by Illinois' Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, according to the newspaper. The Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, which licenses marijuana businesses in the state, is named in the lawsuit as well, and GRI Holdings plans to open dozens of stores in Illinois this year, according to the Sun-Times. The company was part of a lawsuit in 2020 that aimed to block social equity applicants from getting a second chance to win a license, and the applicant had complained that the first opportunity wasn't conducted fairly. Well, is this just a sore loser, or what is going on in Illinois? And this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do you think about this, Yarrow?
Well, I mean, I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier in the program, which is I think the challenges of social equity programs in cannabis are better than not having social equity programs in cannabis. And you've heard me on previous High at 9 News episodes talk a lot of smack about people who litigate in general. I don't know that I feel that filing lawsuits is always the best approach. And I'm a free market guy. I mean, I'm a hippie granola, social equity pro. Let's save the world, and I do believe in climate change, but I also believe in a free market. And so the radius restrictions around retail always felt a little arbitrary to me at best. We don't have those restrictions with coffee shops. We don't have those restrictions with most other brick and mortar businesses. And so I don't know. I mean, some are going to win, some are going to fail. Some of that's going to be about who's best funded. Some of that's going to be about who's most knowledgeable. And a lot of that's going to be about execution. But if you don't like competition, get out of America. Because I think that having the ability for dispensaries to be developed without some of those onerous radius restrictions is better for capitalism, better for the consumer, and better for the patient. And so I don't, especially when you're talking about high density urban environments, you can get a lot of people in a small area. And so I don't know. I'm not really that keen on people filing lawsuits, whining and complaining. I think social equity has a lot of room for improvement, but I don't think complaining about somebody opening up a business nearby is the right approach. I think if you want to win, do a better job, sell a better product at a better price, care about your customer, and win.
Right on, man. And I am right with you on that too, man. I'm all about competition here, and especially in cannabis, it's about the experience, man. It's not always People say, oh, it's the price, the price. No, like we have data. In my company, we actually can show you the data that it is more about experience. It is more about like being in touch with the community. If you want more proof of that, there's a reason why all the big MSOs left established markets for these emerging markets, because they have no connection with the communities, right? So you go to the hood, you see liquor stores right next to each other. You go to the suburbs, you see Costco right across the street from Sam's Club, right? Competition is what America is about. And if you don't show up to the football game with basketball shorts on. Be ready to compete. Be ready to compete for the same customers, for those same dollars. It is what it is. You are getting into a competitive market. That's my take on it. Like I would not complain about somebody opening up next to me. That's more of a chance for you to show how much better you can do than the next person.
Yeah, you could also look at it as like, hey, if there's a store nearby, there's already a whole bunch of customers that are coming over there that I can recruit to come shop at my
Steal 'em.
store. Exactly.
Yep. Steal them.
Yep, gotta
Like how many
feed 'em
times,
all.
Jason, you see new shops opening up, you see people from other stores at that line giving them flyers.
I mean,
Come over here.
I'll tell you what. You know what I
better
used to do.
product.
You know what I used to do back in the day is any time the DEA would come into town, stores would just get scared and close up and whatnot. And I used to always think like,
Right.
why do they do this? And so I used to go around and put notes on their doors to say that services were being provided at my location, and then just direct the traffic over there. Oh, they got so mad about
Massages.
that. But I did it all
In
the time.
California, at one point, I believe the statistic was that 1 out of 7 people had a real estate license. Okay. I mean, nobody said you can't have a real estate license because we're already at 1 out of 8 people. Everybody and their cousin and their brother and their sister and their mother had a real estate license. But it didn't mean that the real estate practitioners who were fiduciary, energetic, knowledgeable, and hustled weren't going to do well in that industry. It just meant that the barrier to entry to being a practitioner in that industry was really low. I don't see anybody complaining about that. We don't see any lawsuits about, wait, there's too many real estate licenses. Some are going to win, some are going to fail, some aren't good at what they do, no matter what they do. And some people are going to be incredibly successful at whatever they do because of how they do what they do when they do what they do.
Facts.
Oh boy. Any thoughts on this, Rochelle?
Do what you do better.
I mean, I'm all for healthy competition as well. I think that the issue in cannabis is that there's this scarcity mindset because everything's been so messed up, and because it's that people are afraid of competition because they want to hold on and cling to what they think they already have.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is true. I would totally agree with that mindset right there, Rochelle. I think that is definitely prevalent in cannabis. But on that, we're going to go to a commercial, and we're going to be right back.
Relying on 25 years of commercial hydroponic experience, King Solomon Nutrients has engineered the best liquid and dry fertilizer products for cannabis that preserves the crop, the soil, and the environment. Through relentless passion, research, and innovation, King Solomon has developed simplified cannabis crop nutrition you can trust. It was created for farmers, by farmers. Don't mess around. Try the crown.
That's it.
No doubt.
Oh yeah, and we're back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and even YouTube appreciates it. Also, too, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you have not subscribed already, all you got to do is just hit that little subscribe button, ring the little bell, and that way you'll be notified every time we go live. And all of the articles that we cover today, you can find on our website at www.highandnightnews.com. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get yourself a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
That's right, baby. I'm Smoky Vanilla with my background in kinesiology. I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on athletes who have chronic pain or injury due to their sport, or the legends of the chronic in the game, baby.
Oh, yeah, you know what it is. We just stretched, and now we're gonna smoke, because you know what it is.
That's right. I love intuitively creating a session based on the individual I'm working with. We'll go through a few assessments, look at the past health history, injury, or anything that's still affecting you today, and create a customized session just for you. Let's go.
I'm feeling great, Jason. How you feeling today? You got this one? I got
this.
Rochelle.
You got Rochelle.
Okay. Okay. Word on the street is that she is the king of Legos
When she be the queen?
in the cannabis industry,
When she be the queen?
but also she's an experienced reporter with demonstrated history of working with cannabis and psychedelics, and editor over at Green State. And you know what? She's here to break us down with the hard facts and hard truth. Y'all know who it is. Rochelle, Minnesota, Gordon.
It's a great intro, Rico. Appreciate that. So, like most weeks, my story today is completely different. My colleague, Kara Wheatstock, asked the question yesterday, could legal weed increase the value of your home? Let's find out. So, legalization movements often have opponents. These groups and individuals sometimes argue that cannabis dispensaries bring crime and vandals, lowering home values. But new research from Real Estate Witch shows that theory may not have merit. In fact, 2023 data shows that homes in states with legal cannabis saw a greater increase in home values compared to states without adult use. Real Estate Witch is a publication owned by Clever Real Estate that features real estate advice for home buyers. In partnership with Leafly, Real Estate Witch analyzed home value data in the US from 2014 to 2023. They used dispensary data from Leafly and home value information from Zillow. Motley Fool and Diesel Global Solutions Compliance Services Company provided US cannabis legalization information. It is worth noting that various factors contribute to home value outside of whether or not cannabis is legal. A lack of available houses for sale can increase pricing. Noise pollution, schools, parks, crime rates of specific towns also play a role. Obviously, interest rates, as we know. But let's dig deeper. Does cannabis legalization mean higher home values? So, adult use cannabis is currently legal in 23 states and DC. In these states, home values have climbed an average of $185,075. Those that haven't legalized saw an increase of $136,000 and change. Homes in recreational states have an average cost of approximately $417,000 and change, 41% higher than those in states without adult use cannabis. 7 of the top 10 states with the highest increase in home value in 2023 have legal weed to have medical programs. The only state in the top 10 with absolutely no cannabis access is Idaho. Interestingly, most analysis of migration to Idaho in the last few years show that people are moving from states with legal weed, like California, Arizona, Washington, and Colorado. The study lumped medical-only states into the without legal cannabis group. Getting granular with it, states with medical cannabis also saw an increase of just shy of 30 grand more in home value compared to those without adult use or medical access. The typical cost to buy a house in medical states is 21% higher than states without. Real Estate, which also revealed that private real estate in cities that opt into having dispensaries is more expensive than localities that opt out of having cannabis businesses in the city limits. Regulations in some states grant city and county governments from barring cannabis businesses from operating there, but those elected officials may reconsider. Homes in cities with recreational dispensaries saw a $67,000 and change increase in property value compared to places where dispensaries are banned. So it turns out that bolstering creativity and potential medicinal value aren't the only possible benefits of cannabis. Legalization could mean a higher home value, especially for those who live in a city with dispensaries. Looks like voters in states without adult use programs just got more incentive to consider pushing for policy updates. So Rochelle Gordon, on behalf of Kara Wheatstock at Green State for High at 9 News, what do you guys think? Does legal weed impact the home value? I can tell you this. In Colorado, when I went there for the second or third time in 2017, I asked an Uber driver, has cannabis benefited you in any way? And he said, hell yeah, my house value doubled in the last 2 years. Now, obviously, the market there has changed, but I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I mean, I love this story, Rochelle. I mean, in the beginning, a lot of the prohibitionists would always complain that dispensaries bring down home values. But now it seems like there's some quantitative data to disprove that recent thought.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Kevin Sabet.
Oh, they're funny. Yeah, but no, all the NIMBYs would always talk about, oh, you're ruining our house values by having these dispensaries here. You're bringing in all this crime and da 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 da. And it seems like all of that study after study is proved that cannabis dispensaries actually make the neighborhood more safer and better quality of life overall for the residents in those neighborhoods.
It's an economic boon, man. Just look at Orange County, right? Remember Orange County first opening up? Yeah, they only allowed businesses here in Santa Ana,
Yep.
right? Numbers came in. Santa Ana was killing it and started developing and getting crazy. And then the rest of the most red district of all,
I mean,
California.
there's only have one. You only
everybody
other
else-
have Costa Mesa. There ain't any other cities in Orange County that have it.
Irvine's opening up. And then,
Irvine may
more
be opening up, but they haven't crossed that threshold.
I'm
yet.
saying they're opening it up now because they've seen the numbers. They see Santa Ana's been getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Period. You see those numbers,
I
and
agree
you're,
with that. Santa Ana
I
has
guess
been getting it.
cannabis
That was actually how Santa Ana actually got consumption lounges, because they were going to open up retail in Costa Mesa, and that was the trade off. So then that way the Santa Monica retailer still had some advantage, so then that way they could offer some consumption lounges.
Yep, and that's the brownest part of Orange County, Santa Ana. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and let them open up, but we're not gonna do it over here.
The brownest part of Orange County? I thought that was Anaheim.
Oh. I think it's a different kind of brown you're talking about, Jason.
I don't know, bro. I don't know. I mean, there's only one color brown that I know of.
There's more melanin. Let's put it that way. There's more melanin in Santa Ana than other parts of Orange County. You let them go ahead and have their cannabis dispensaries. We'll see how it happens for them. And then they have a budget surplus. They're opening up everything, fixing everything over there. Then all of a sudden, you see, oh, I guess we're going to open it up now. It's not so dangerous.
It's not so dangerous.
Follow the money. That's it.
It's true. It's not,
as always.
It's not as dangerous. And this is a great story. Thank you so much for sharing this today, Rochelle. We appreciate it very much and appreciate you.
Data today.
Yes. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back. Or do we have a commercial?
How's it going, guys? Saman Razani coming to you from Green Street here with Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast available on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify? Tune in now and check it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
I
man.
feel like he's the reason we're always late.
You guys are so funny. You guys are so funny.
And Jason coming through with a second story on the hour.
Yes, that's right. Question for you. Which story do you guys want to hear about? Do you guys want to hear about marijuana MSOs in Nevada consumption lounges, or do you want to hear first Arizona is oversupplied with marijuana?
Let's go with Arizona oversupply.
All right. Arizona is oversupplied with marijuana as brands seek a shrinking shelf space in dispensaries. When marijuana was outlawed in Arizona, smoking a plant's flower was the primary way to feel its effect. Now adults and medical patients can instead choose vape pens, gummies, and even beverages. Machinery filled and sealed a long line of tall, slender cans made and sold by the Flower Shop AZ on a recent Thursday morning. The ingredients are flavored water, some of the psychoactive chemical THC, and an injection of carbon dioxide. That's a pretty simple recipe. Seltzers grew popular as booze drinks, and a link with alcohol may chafe some in the marijuana business. But Vicky Doolittle thinks that it's spirit makers who should be annoyed. We're coming in their market share, Doolittle said. Doolittle is a sales director for a firm called Your Way Cannabis Brands. The publicly traded company owns an Arizona-based extract maker that also does white labeling of marijuana products known as Shatter, Diamonds, and Distillate, better known as concentrates. Arizona's third year of legalized marijuana has been hard for people in the industry. The thumbs of growers have become so green that they are in an oversupply as And as multi-state operators set up, local brands have to compete for shrinking shelf space in a limited number of dispensaries. In a quote, "It's definitely a big war out there. We're just out of prohibition," Doolittle said. To her point, a lawsuit recently filed by the marijuana company Doolittle used to work for against her current employer alleges that there was a kickback scheme involving others to get products into dispensaries, and Doolittle is not a defendant, nor is she mentioned in the complaint, and Doolittle was actually recruited into cannabis industry from being long-established greeting card giant Hallmark. She switched jobs after her husband urged her to seek a new challenge. Then he died of COVID-19, sadly. The outpouring of support from marijuana industry people she hardly knew has made them Doolittle's family, she says. And so I will do everything I can do to help any brand, she says. Arizona brands of major marijuana used to be all there. All there when things were available in state licensed dispensaries, and Doolittle estimates that now local products account for less than half of store displays. And some of these kinds that are coming in have much larger marketing budgets than the local Arizona ones do, she says. The result is local brands get cannibalized, then those that survive still have to compete with multi-state operators, which run most Arizona dispensaries and have their own marijuana products. They can make reciprocal deals to get them displayed to consumers, but in a quote, and the smaller brands don't have that option. So they have to get very creative on how they get onto shelves, Doolittle said. The Flower Shop AZ is an example of a multi-state operator. Its stores are supplied by a huge grow operation in southern Arizona, an industrial kitchen that makes seltzers and more, plus a separate operation for marijuana extracts where a machine filled vape cartridges with distillate. The capsules will eventually go into the vape batteries for a product line that also features low-dose edibles, and it was created by Flower Shop president Greta Brandt. There was nothing that was specifically geared towards women, and I saw that as a missed opportunity, Brandt said. And this just kind of just goes on and on and on, but apparently there's a major shortage of shelf space in Arizona, and it just sounds like Arizona is the next state with an oversaturation of cannabis like California, Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma, New York, and so many others. What do you guys think about Arizona joining this list?
Arizona's going through some shit, man.
I mean, Arizona was one of the top markets to be in when it first opened up, and everyone was all excited about it. Everybody was like, oh, man, this is the spot.
Okay, so that was the key early on. If you got in early on, a lot of the ones that were in there first, they're okay. But there are all these kickback schemes to Trulieve. You have all these allegations of backdoor deals that have been going on. And anybody who's coming into the Arizona market, you really can't get on the shelves. You really can't work with any of the retailers because they have their alliances already set in place. So what do you have? You have a glut of products. You have stale product out there. The prices are being commoditized quicker than other places, and you have operators just leaving because they can't compete out there. So what you see is the market imploding in Arizona right now, and they got to open it up, man. They got to open it up and then start working with some other people and some other ideas, or we're gonna continue to see the woes exacerbate.
Yes. The woes, Wardy. That's for sure. Lots of woes out there.
Whoa, hey.
Lots of woes. Any thoughts on this, Rochelle? Arizona?
That's a tale as old as time, right? Just like Rico was saying, it's like, get in while the getting's good. People have their partners who they like, who've paid for placement, whatever it is, and basically eliminating competition. It seems like that's the theme of the day, right?
It definitely is a theme of the day. That's for sure. That is for sure. Speaking of themes of the day, I'm just going to roll into our final story of the day because we are running very, very short on time. But are you ready for this? And this is a real quickie, Rico. Are you ready for this?
Always ready for a quickie.
Marijuana MSOs among 6 new consumption lounges licenses in Nevada as we get ready for MJ Biz Conference, where all of the cannabis industry flocks to Nevada. Nevada regulators approved 6 more conditional licenses for marijuana consumption lounges, including concepts from 2 of the nation's largest cannabis companies. New York-based Curaleaf Holdings plans to open a retail-attached consumption lounge through its subsidiary Trike Costs at its Reef dispensary just off the Las Vegas Strip, according to Business of Cannabis. Green Thumb Industries, headquartered in Chicago, plans to establish a similar concept through its integral associate subsidiary at an adjacent location to the Cookies on the Strip retail outlet, the news site reported. The other conditional license winners include Desert Evolution, Hierarchy, Nevada Pure, and TGIG. The state's Cannabis Compliance Board, the CCB, has now approved 15 consumption lounges in Nevada. The agency confirmed to MJ Biz Daily, and the CCB in June granted the first 3 conditional licenses for such venues and approved loosening air ventilation standards for marijuana consumption lounges, theoretically making it cheaper and easier for lounges to open their doors in one of the nation's largest tourist markets. Then in August, the regulator approved 3 applications, including 2 concepts in the Las Vegas market. Nearly 40 million people visited Las Vegas last year, and on Wednesday, Planet 13 Holdings, a Las Vegas-based MSO, released renderings and details of its 3,000 square foot consumption, food, and entertainment space. The Dazed Consumption Lounge, which features bong chandeliers, VIP booths with flat-screen TVs, and a secret entrance, will offer customers flower, concentrates, vapes, edibles, and specialty crafted canna cocktails, according to a news release. In a quote, one of the main goals for this year was to increase the utilization of its superstore to drive more traffic and revenue while improving cost structure and operating margins, Planet 13 co-CEO Larry Schiffler said in a statement. Your boy Rico. He also says, we are executing on that goal while continuing to define Planet 13 as a differentiated retail brand with national recognition. Days is expected to open on or by April 20th of 2024. What do you think about this? All these lounges in Nevada.
Shout out to my man Larry.
I
But
bet.
people gonna be hating on me because I love me some Larry. Larry's my guy. But I'm just mad that we don't have Nicole Buffong on today because she called this shit from the jump.
Mhm.
It was a full-time jack move from the beginning. These MSOs are the only ones that were going to be able to operate as they wanted to with the consumption lounges. I don't know, man. Money talks,
Mhm.
and especially in down markets. Larry came out. He's ruffled so many feathers with his last comment when he said, these other businesses didn't have what it takes. We got money.
Yeah.
We're gonna be buying them up. We're going shopping.
Yep.
Right. That is what capitalism is. Unfortunately, we are seeing the first real down market in cannabis. And guess what? It's M&A season, and big bank eat little bank.
Mhm.
That's what's going on. And the companies that survive this, they're deep pocketed.
Nope.
So
That they are very, very true. What do you think, Rochelle? Are you going to go to any of these consumption lounges in Nevada? These big old MSO consumption lounges.
I don't know, man.
Consume some
Like,
beverages.
I still could go to my trap
consume
parties.
I can do that here in Minnesota. Like,
Right.
here's the thing. These are necessary in Vegas. They've taken a long time to get there. I'm not surprised at all that it's going to the MSOs because Vegas is so corrupt and money driven to begin with.
Mhm.
So it's just it's interesting how it's played out, but not wholly surprising. But here's the thing. Personally, like, Vegas frustrates me because it takes so long to get everywhere and it's so frustrating. It's like, do I need to go all the way to the consumption lounge when I could easily just like go outside in the garden and hide my little joint? Like,
Yep.
I don't know. It could be an interesting experience. Like, I'm all for lounges, but if it's a pain in the ass to get there, I don't want to go.
I agree with you, Rochelle, because a majority of times just getting from your hotel room just down to the valet to get a limo is at least a 15-minute walk.
Yeah,
I'm surprised they don't have like more, party buses and stuff like that. Just have the consumption lounges.
I don't
like
think the
mobile
consumption lounges are allowed to pull their vehicles up onto the casino property.
I think that would be a clear moneymaker.
I think it would, but then at the same time you would have these federally protected casinos engaging in contracts with Schedule I drug dealers, and so I think that would be a big no-no by the gaming association, and the whole bunch of people out there in Nevada would have a no-no to that.
Right, that's a city that's run by big alcohol, but it could be a big money. It could be a big moneymaker. There might be a loophole in there,
A
Dig into them
loophole. I
stats, man. You're fine.
I like how you look for loopholes, Rico. I'm always looking for nice
Always.
things too.
Hey, always
Yes.
good for the reach around, baby.
That's oh
But
boy.
thank you all for joining us for yet another episode of High at Night News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our super fans showing love, getting their comments posted live on the big screen, our live audience and online supporters, catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the daily headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. To our vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respected opinions to the table, our production team, Cloud Media partners, and all our sponsors, keeping the lights on and our AV struggles to a minimum. And as always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason we show up to read these headlines every single day. Thank you. It has been Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. The show's over. You've all been blessed with the top industry headlines. Hope it was enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. My name is Rico Lemite, the dopest dad on the street. Rochelle Gordon, you got to take us out.
You're feeling bummed out, go build a Lego set.
Oh, maybe the bong Lego set, right,
Mm-mm.
Nicole? Right, Rochelle?
Build yourself a bong, that's right.
That's right. Build yourself a bong.
Build a bong. Ooh,
Yeah.
build a bong.
Build a
Ooh,
bong.
Quote
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a new Lego set that
Oh,
just
they're
came
waiting.
out. Yes.